Welcome to Prepper Nation. I'm John. Thank you very much for being here as always. Thank you for supporting the channel, however you choose to do so, and all that YouTube stuff, the thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever, son. Subscribing to the channel and all that. It's truly appreciated. So news has broken out. I can't believe this one. What a shocker. News is breaking out that the world banks are now predicting a deep, deep recession or even a Great Depression. They're trying to warn people, man, the economy's getting ready to be really, really bad. And I almost wanted to talk about that this morning, but then I thought, everybody's going to be talking about that. There are going to be a lot of creators in the prepping community talking about that. And quite frankly, we here at Prepper Nation have been predicting that for a year and a half, almost a year and a half. So I wanted to talk about something else this morning. Again, if you're into the whole, banks collapsing, economic collapse, I promise you, somebody else is talking about it this morning. So go get your fill. But there was a comment left yesterday. And as soon as I saw the executive order number, I said, I got to talk about this. Because I don't know if everybody understands what this executive order means and what it looks like for preppers. So let's talk about the legal seizure of your stuff, including potentially even you in forced labor. So this is Executive Order 13603. Again, 13603. You're welcome to Google it. It'll take you straight to the, to the White House where the memo was sent out and everything. Straight to the executive order. But it was signed by good old President Obama back in March of 2012. And to be fair, there have been versions similar to this bill prior to that. Actually, since the beginning of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, there have been some type of national security bill or executive order in place. And what he did is he went in and he updated the existing bills substantially, again, back in 2012. And he started using different terminology. Now, that may be nothing. That may mean nothing to a lot of people. But he started using the terminology based around the Department of Homeland Security. So it's a real eye-opener if you go check it out. It's also known as the National Defense Resources Preparedness Executive Order. I know that's a mouthful, right? So I'm going to give you some of the bullet points from the bill. Again, you're welcome to go read it all. It's like 11 or 12 pages, maybe a little more than that. But this gives the sitting president, whoever the sitting president is at the time that this is enacted, the right to seize all commodities ingested or consumed by humans and animals. So this is going to be food. This is going to be water. This is going to be a lot of different things. Medications specifically were mentioned in the bill as well. Goods, consumer goods that the government believes it needs during a time of crisis. Once this thing is enacted, and again, it's already legal. All the president has to do is say, the country's in bad shape. We need to enact this. I'm enacting 13603. This gives the government the legal authority to come and take your stuff. And I know, I go back, I hear the comments, y'all. And me and Backwoods, we go back and forth over his wood stove, and we do it to be funny. But truly, if they deem wood stoves, if it gets to the point where they think wood stoves, if they can spin it into a matter of national security, and I'm just using that as an example, they can seize them. If there's a food shortage or potentially a famine, yes, they can seize food and things like that. All forms of energy are mentioned here. And this is very important because, again, this was signed back in 2012, but now the country seems crazy when it comes to climate change and ending climate change and man-made climate change and all of that. Said it 3 times, so maybe they'll flag me, whatever. All forms of energy. This is very, very important because, again, they can spin climate change into a matter of national security, and they can start seizing things that they deem bad for the environment Okay, and they can do so legally. I know a lot of y'all are out there probably same as me saying they're not getting my crap, but legally they believe they can. All forms of civil transportation. So this would be coming in, setting up roadblocks, which we saw some of that during the pandemic, and you needed certain paperwork to move about. But this can also mean, mass transit and stuff like this. They can seize all of it for government use as they deem necessary. All usable water sources, lakes, rivers, ponds, streams, whatever, anything they feel like they need, they can put boots on the ground to basically keep everyone else away, even if it's on private property. Again, because an executive order's been signed, there's no mention of constitutional rights throughout the executive order. I will tell you that. When Obama put this into effect, he wasn't thinking about constitutional rights. He was thinking about what the government will need when this thing is enacted. And finally, the other bullet point I wrote down was forced labor. So, for whatever the case may be, and this has happened a couple of times historically, I'll give you one example. So, when Germany was marching in on Stalingrad back during World War II, Stalingrad knew they had to defend the city, but they didn't have enough manpower to do what they needed, so they were forcing citizens out to build trenches, to build anti-tank barricades and stuff like that. Yes, they can force you to do that during certain situations. I know people like to believe the government's not going to march me out and do that to me, but I'm telling you, during certain situations, they have no problem doing it. It's been done time and time again. So, to issue regulations to prioritize and allocate sources. That's a direct quote from this executive order. Issue regulations to prioritize and allocate sources. So in other words, implement regulations instantly. All right. Gather up everything that they deem necessary and distribute it however they see fit. Take your stuff. This is in layman's terms, okay? They show up to a community, they collect everybody's stuff. This is now regulated. This is now regulated. Give us your stuff. Give us your stuff. Stockpile it all together. The troops are going to use what they need first, and whatever's left over is going to be allocated again as they see fit. It's going to be rationed out for the common good of national security. They use the term national security a lot, especially for a country that doesn't seem to care about national security at our borders, if I'm being frank. But I will say this bill is necessary to a point. All right. I don't care what government it is. Every government has to have a contingency plan in place, for pretty much every situation. All right. You have to believe, no matter how great your country seems at the time, you have to understand there may come a point in time when the wheels are falling off. You've got to keep civil unrest to a minimum. All right. And this is their way of doing it. It allows the government to fully mobilize very quickly during a major event. And again, we saw this in the Soviet Union. We saw the French do this. We saw the Germans do it. We saw recently, we've seen both Ukraine and also, I believe, Belarus and also Russia do this. So any kind of major event, immediately I'm thinking war, or I'm thinking some sort of boots on the ground invasion. If an invasion happens tomorrow morning, God forbid, if an invasion happens, they can institute this immediately because they can say it's a matter of national security. But again, I have circled here on the cliff notes, climate change, because they really are ramping up the rhetoric toward climate change. This seems to be the biggest boogeyman. These people that are in charge are pointing harder at climate change than they are World War III. They're saying climate change is what we need to worry about. And that's very dangerous because I think that with these kind of laws in place, I don't think they're constitutionally legal. I'm not taking the side of this executive order. Let me just say, but they believe it's legal because, again, it has a signature from President Obama and every president since then. I know we got Trump fans, might even have some Biden fans in chat. None of them have rescinded the order. Let that sink in for a second. All right, Trump fans. Obama did a lot of damage. Trump came in. He undid a lot of the damage, but he kept this one on the books. It makes you wonder why, right? But whoever the sitting president is, all they have to do is point to this executive order, say they're going to enact it, and it's fully in place. And you have what looks like martial law. All right, now this can be regionally, meaning this can be 3 or 4 states. This can be one city. This can be, we were just talking about student loans the other day. This can be San Francisco and the students saying no. And they go out and they start acting the fool. And the National Guard comes in. They have the right to enact this, among many other executive orders. The point is, yes, the government can seize your stuff. They can take your stuff. They can do it legally. I just want to make that crystal clear this morning. They can take your stuff. And historically, it has been done before. Okay, that's not to scare you. That's just to make you fully aware that the laws are there. It's already legal. And so this is why I prep a certain way. All right, this is why I don't live on, what is it called, 100-acre wood off Winnie the Pooh. We don't have 100 acres out here growing stuff. We are growing stuff, but we don't have a huge homestead for this reason, because the larger the homestead, the larger the target. And I'm not discouraging you from homesteading. I'm saying, maybe consider executive orders like this, because if you have the biggest farm in town and this thing gets enacted and the boys in camo roll through, you're going to be one of the first stops that they make once they set up a forward operating base, okay? This is why I encourage you, and I get why some people don't have them. I encourage you to have a backup location or a bug out location in mind, a place that you've been there, you've been there before, you know how to get there. It's kind of sort of concealed well. And again, I understand some people are like, I'm not leaving my home. Okay, and I get that side of the argument, protect the castle, but it never hurts to have a backup option. Because if you're protecting the castle and they show up with the right paperwork and they take everything out of the castle, you have nothing left but pictures hanging on a wall from a prepping standpoint, okay? And then you're done as a prepper. Knowing how to conceal things, whether you're burying catches out in the yard and disguising them with nails and pennies and stuff, or any scrap metal, really, or you have concealed spots in the home. To me, this is a prep, all right? Being able to conceal stuff fairly quickly. Because I think if this is ever enacted and they begin seizing stuff from people's homes, you're probably going to have a little bit of advance notice. You're going to have a friend or a family member or neighbor saying, look, man, they just left my house. They jacked everything up. They took everything but the big screen TV, that sort of thing. You may have 5 minutes. You may have 30 minutes, whatever. Being able to conceal and identify the necessary stuff. If I have to conceal stuff, I'm not throwing pork and beans in a concealed spot, okay? That is when I'm going with the 30-day and the 90-day supplies of survival food. That is when I'm really, really focused on water and weapons of peace and stuff like that, medications, because it's a lot smaller and it's easier to conceal, okay? Know your surrounding property. Not just where you live, but what the neighborhood looks like, what that community looks like, where the honey holes, where the water sources, just in case you would need one, that sort of thing. Are there any areas in your community that are potentially dangerous? Neighborhoods that you would avoid during a total collapse? Do you know several routes to get in and out of town or out of the city? Just understand that the likelihood of our government seizing your stuff is very low. This is not fear porn. I'm giving it to you straight. The likelihood is very, very low, but it is possible. Ask somebody who lived through Hurricane Katrina, the types of things that can happen. during a situation like that. Nobody expected that to happen. And then when it happened, there was mass panic. There was martial law, or something that looked very, very similar to martial law. There were a lot of seizures going on of people's things and weapons of peace and stuff like that. They were going around with lists. Hey, we know that you have this pistol. We need you to surrender it to us, please. By the way, curfew's at 7 p.m., that sort of thing. The likelihood is low. But as a prepper, you need to understand that, number one, it can happen because it is legal. And number two, you need to have a plan for it. All right, just sit down for an hour and think about where you would go, what you would conceal, how you're going to handle that situation. You know, it's more of a mental prep than anything else, but to me, it's one of those things where if it happens, you don't have to fly into panic mode and start throwing together a plan last minute, because you've already, at least mentally, walked yourself through it, and you know, I'm going to do this first, this second. I'm always keeping the vehicle gassed up. I've got stuff in the vehicle that I need, that sort of stuff. Okay, I've got rucksacks ready to go, that sort of thing. So that's this morning's conversation. I appreciate each and every one of you being here. If you're in the Coffee Club, Patreon, or Bunker Buster, we're going to have an exclusive live stream in and around lunchtime, Eastern Standard Time this morning. Till then, y'all take care and God bless.